So the main story evolves over multiple seasons. So the storyline we kick off in Paris does not end in Japan. On the contrary, it's really only the beginning. I see the first season as an overture or act one, if you will, and it's more of it's pretty subtle. The main story is more of a background presence for season one, but I think it's safe to say we'll shift gears along the way and build towards something pretty spectacular, I think.
No, I completely agree. The first few episodes of the season are mainly just about that we're back. I mean, in so many ways with the game, with Agent 47, with sort of classic hit missions, and we knew we wanted to just be at a point in time where 47 and Diana are doing their jobs, right? Basically, they're just on missions.
Yeah.
And for a little while, they don't really suspect that something has changed or that something is happening behind the scenes. But as we already indicated with the trailers we've been doing, also the opening cinematic, which is also in the game, is this shadow client, right? Who is not pleased with the state of things. I think we can say that, and he will change things, right?
I think it makes sense. It's something you can do when you go episodic and you have multiple seasons ahead of you, where you can introduce story and characters slowly without getting in the way of gameplay, and players can get to know the world without us throwing a whole bunch of narrative stuff in their faces from the get-go.
No, absolutely. And we don't have this demand that 47 has to come under pressure. He has to change, and all these things that we were, I wouldn't say slaves to, but at least we had to really fight. That's sort of not really there now. Now it's much more about unveiling different characters and their motivations. And there are a few that actually come to life in season one. And that do not die in season one. I think we can say as much, or at least that we have this ambition of expanding sort of the set of characters or the ensemble around 47 to create these cool sort of tensions and story drivers, if you will. And at the same time, without spoiling anything, there is obviously a conclusion to season one's sort of story arc. Not meaning that it ends the seasons, but it's just a small little poetic sort of ending to season
There's a
one.
sort of framing narrative, but it's definitely a huge cliffhanger, I'd say. And we spent most of season one introducing the new long-term main story cast and set up the mystery and the central conflict and all that.
Well, that's the point, right? I mean, we literally thought about seasons when we talked about the main story, and as a rule of thumb, it's obviously very nice to know where you want to go, where you want roughly things to end at what point in time. So I think we have some pretty strong ideas about where this is going to go. But it felt also very nice to temper that whole thing into season one, which is, it feels just like arriving or just beginning, right? As you said, it's an overture.
It's very nice to be out of the cinematic model. Feels good.
Yeah, it really does.
I think Hitman is perfect for episodic releases. Each mission is a little self-contained universe in a way. It feels like an ending when you complete a mission. It's not like some arbitrary part of a storyline. Even more importantly, it's based on replayability. And I mean, you can kill your targets in so many different ways. Some are unique and scripted and spectacular, and others are more systemic and improvised. And it's the same with narrative. I mean, you have to play it continuously to unlock all the story stuff, to get the backstories and the characters and the plot and the main story links and all that. I love how the games were always about replay, right? And it's funny because when we get a level design in here, they typically have to rethink their craft because they can't really rely on knowing what the player is doing. And I think that also goes for the storytelling. I've noticed that point where a new level designer joins, that point where they realize what the game is actually about and they go completely pale with like, holy shit.
And I think that embracing that for story has been a big part of this version of Hitman. So one of the interesting things when we think about the game is that we obviously said that we are able to adjust gameplay and tweak and sort of integrate how people are playing the game and actually learn from that. And I think to some extent this is also true for the story. It's not in the sense that we change sort of overarching major beats in the story, but knowing you, Michael, I know already that you're keenly aware of what people are already saying about the beta, how they take in the characters, what they're thinking about them. And obviously this will inform how they, if we take Diana and 47, how are they actually talking together, or what subplots are likely to sort of surface in the levels. We're still writing levels for season 1, and obviously we haven't really started by anything but top level ideas for season 2. So obviously these, when people start interpreting, say, I think this guy is this guy, or I think this is related to this that way, you're sort of, it's sort of, it does something to you, right?
And then you can't do it because people will think you got it off the forums. But I think that's what TV series do all the time.
Yeah.
It's very natural for an episodic medium. I mean, and it's very rare, I think, for a long-running TV show to actually know the entire storyline from the beginning. They might claim they do, but they usually don't.
Nah, and I also don't think it makes for the best sort of story necessarily. No, we have sort of some key beats we know we arrive at some point.
Yeah.
Not exactly how they will play out, but roughly what happens. And I think it's going to be exciting to see how people start, interpreting the characters we're creating, and yeah, I can't wait for how it affects sort of also. There's so much nuance in each level, right? And what gets talked about, and you spend so much time sort of creating these small links between the factions in the world and the different characters. So for the people who are sensible to that stuff or can actually take it in, there's a lot of stuff there.
Well, to me, this installment is a spy thriller. There's definitely some Mission Impossible and some James Bond and some Michael Mann. And
yeah. No, and I think that became also a thing, right? Like we needed globetrotting. It's a big promise of playing Hitman. I think from the sort of the legacy of the series that you're an agent, you travel the world. But then also pick inspirations from different. I mean, even within the spy thriller, you can go very dry, or you can go overly dramatic and very tongue-in-cheek. And I think we have many ends of that spectrum in the different missions. A lot of the stories you tell in the levels, they simply require that people actually play more than once.
Oh yeah.
And they are not likely to find everything. And I also think it requires for the players to actually want to do that. I don't think every player in the world will want to, dig out every detail, much like it is with the gameplay. But for those who are actually interested, there's just so many layers of story around the main targets typically.
And then we tie the best gameplay and the best story content together with the opportunities. So if you are rewarded for following the subplots and the storylines, because that leads to the most interesting action and kills. And
I mean the whole setup around Iago and becoming the male model in Paris and phoning Dahlia Margolis, and this whole trying to understand the inner workings of Iago and finally meeting Dahlia and having this sort of one-on-one with her as where 47 is disguised as Helmut Kruger, the sort of the supermodel who is also part spy, and sort of seeing Agent 47 step into that role and sort of outmaneuver Dahlia, I would say. That's pure story gold, but it also feels like a gameplay reward.
Definitely.
Absolutely.